one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, goodness. We are recording. It's not going to do the message recording thing tonight, but we are.
Next, we have comments from the public on agenda items. Just a reminder for members of the public in attendance, this is one of two opportunities afforded members of the public to comment on or inquire about agenda items. Members of the public also have an opportunity at the end of the evening's agenda to comment on matters not formally noted on the agenda. Anyone person have anything? Nothing, we didn't get anything through the webpage?
No, I'll double check the other account for later, but nothing this afternoon.
Okay, then that takes us to approval of minutes. Could I get a resolution, please?
Sure.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands BOE School District accept the minutes of the September 12th meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communication to the board. It's like a communication from Lauren Zamel and Dr. Joseph Dragon regarding BOCES annual report.
It's a lot of, a lot of good information in there. Read it. Summarizes their last year.
Okay. And any questions about the proposes passing. Okay, that takes us to superintendent's comments and updates.
Good evening. So the first item that I have for our discussion items tonight are the agreement between the school and the village police department in regards to the usage of cameras. So when we brought on both internal and external cameras, one of the considerations was what would the access be to the police department, and specifically around emergency events. So in the event of an emergency, what access would we be granting, and how would that access occur? There was a lot of conversation around, our roles of the CRO, and then trying to make sure that we have an agreement in place that honors the role of our CRO while also providing a safe and secure environment for students where the police, in the event of an emergency, can do their jobs in the best way that they can. So the agreement that is in front of you for discussion tonight is an agreement that was drawn up by our school attorney, Frank Burrow. He did some work with other school districts that he works with, and we talked a little bit about what the overall intent of having this police officer in the building was. He had a copy of our CRO agreement to begin with, and then looked at other agreements that they had drawn up with other local school districts and started to model that agreement after this one here. Him and I had a little bit of back and forth just about logistics, like, our camera system is not web-based. It is installed on district camera or on district computers and can only be accessed through our district network. So some of that information had to be updated. And then he went ahead and drew up the agreement, and that's what I have here for you to take a look at this evening, have some conversation around, and in the hopes that this agreement really honors the work that we were trying to do by having a proactive relationship with the police department, giving them access to our security footage in the event that there is an emergency, and then also making sure that we continue to really use our CR agreement as our guiding force. What are the outcomes that we hope to have by having a CRO in place, a community resource officer, and then what does that look like from, the perspective of now we have district cameras. So the agreement that we have in front of us really does call out, in the event of an emergency, and that is outlined, pretty much throughout the document. And the idea that in the event of an emergency, that we would be granting access to the village police department. The piece that I will say, it does specifically call out our community resource officer, because in the event of an emergency, they only truly can be accessed through this district devices. And we did give our CRO a district device. He has a school-based email. So that really, I believe, in my opinion, would be the best suited individual, because that person kind of has the capacity built right in to do so. So I can share the agreement, but I guess I would put it out to the board to have some conversation, some feedback, and your thoughts with the agreement that you have been presented with.
I'll follow up a little bit on that. We talked about this a little bit. We had a policy committee right before here, and we talked about, in addition to the contract, we should have a policy about our security cameras, about where they are and where they're not. We're not going to use classrooms to trying to make sure people want teachers or anything like that. They're really in public spaces, outside buildings, hallways, cafeteria, that sort of thing. We talked about adding to the policy, who has access and when is that access to be used. I did go back and reread this after the policy committee. It does kind of spell some of that out for the CRO position, but I think we want to detail that a little bit in policy as well, so that we have it in this is the policy and it's tool for when it's being used. We talked about the point of the cameras is really to be used in the event of emergency, not to be monitoring students on a regular basis in the hallway, that sort of thing.
No, I don't have any questions.
So it should be in policy, right? So we talked briefly about that. So comments then from the board, going back and then allowing policy to make sure that our thoughts are in line with that before the agreement signed. I'm understanding that correctly. If it's only accessible by school-issued devices, and there's an emergency where the school is evacuated, how are we accessing camera footage?
Not. Unless you brought your device with you and you were still able to connect to the district network. So like I could, if I was sitting in my car, or if I was within range of the district network, I would need to, if I needed to access camera footage, I would either have to be in the building or I would have to reach out to the company that holds it, and we would have to access it that way.
So you as a superintendent have that privilege. Are we granting it through this agreement to have the CRO have that same privilege?
No.
So it's only the equipment that he has in the office?
Yes.
So it's not his personal device or phone or police-issued devices to access?
And the app can only be downloaded by the company. So we work with our tech department. It's not something that we can, just say, oh, I can see, you know what, Liz, can we get that on somebody's computer quickly? It's actually a pretty comprehensive time. Liz could probably speak to it a little bit more if you would like her to do so. Because she has worked closely with the company to get it on my computer, to get it on Principal Wiley's computer. She can speak a little bit to the process that she has to undergo.
It's a multi-step process. We work with Eclipse, they're the vendor that do the cameras. To log, it's an app on your computer. You need to log into the server and then you log into your account. Each account, I have to work directly with Eclipse to create any accounts. It takes them a few days to get them created. Usually it's sent through a secure portal that I log into to get the information to share it with, and any accounts would only ever be created if I was directly told, people are directly told to make the account, and then, they log in from there. It took us a week to just get ourselves logged on, I think, for the first time. And once you get it going, it's, and you're trained, it's not a big lift, but it's really not an easy thing to just hop on and, add someone new or add your friend or add, your coworker, your neighbor. If I step out and I'm working from home, I can't access it. You can't see anything. But it's pretty secure.
The agreement says in the event of emergency. So that's your call as a superintendent or your designee to make that call of what constitutes an emergency and then what constitutes access to the system.
Yes.
So it's not available just because it's on the device.
So
It would be.
it is available because it's on the device, and there would be a level of trust, that
Understood.
we would work through that conversation, what constitutes an emergency, what does not constitute an emergency. And, one of the things that we had talked through in policy was also the ability to prevent an emergency. So I gave the example, just the other day, we had a delivery driver kind of driving around campus, looking at doors, trying to figure out where to be. And, in the event that we're able to prevent something before it, got to the building, that would be something that I would ask the policy committee to consider as well. Like, what do we want to look at, just like when we're in an emergency, or do we also want to look at, one of the things that Officer Stone does for us is he walks the property each morning. And do we want him to have the ability to be able to monitor the outside of the property? And do we want to have a log and, those sorts of things, and talking about process. But ultimately, some of the language in there is ultimately I get to decide what is an emergency.
Right.
Somebody doesn't get to come and say, I need it, it is an emergency. The final decision would rest with the superintendent or the designee.
And I'm fine. Let me, in case it makes it sound like I'm against this, I'm really not. We worked very hard to put a CRO in place, the board, administration. We went through the efforts to make sure that the community knows what we're doing. Video monitoring is a whole new level of community trust with the board and the district, right? So the questions I'm asking is not at all trying to put this down or try to shut this down. I just want to make sure we're very clear about board expectations, administration, and the CRO of this contract, and then the policy that we need to write and put in place. So on that, you had said about preventative. So then the access from the CRO would have access to view footage, hallways and or outside where they're placed, correct, throughout the day. So then who's monitoring that access? Is it gonna, and I don't want to say it does, but if it gets to the point that the CRO is looking at video footage 4 hours a day, why? Right, and is it all preventative? Is that why we have a CRO on site? Is that what we're looking for? I want to make sure this doesn't get out of hand. So we make sure we, either it's policy or change the wording of this contract to address that, to make sure we're not.
And I do want to add, like Eclipse would have the ability, they can tell us who logs in, when they logged in, what they looked at, how long, like there's a record that's kept of every login.
They have it or it comes back to the district.
Eclipse would have it. We'd have to request that information from
So
them.
we wouldn't know who was looking at video footage from the administration or the CRO unless it was requested.
Yeah, there's no direct log
Okay.
that just keeps that for our
Perhaps that's
knowledge,
something
but
that might want to be addressed or
Put it
get.
as part of the policy.
you could send maybe a monthly log or something like that. But I know Eclipse has that data and they would be able to let us know.
I think the answer to that, I feel better about at least having that information out there and being able to get it, but I don't know if anyone else has any comments.
And I would say, establishing internal controls is gonna be a critical part of the policy committee. And then in addition, one of the pieces that Frank and I spoke quite a bit about was directly referencing that the purpose of access is not for surveillance of student and staff behavior and monitoring of students and staff within the building. And that's a direct line that's in there, because I think it's important to our community that we're transparent, that this truly is in the event of an emergency and directed to help keep our students as safe as possible. And not so much, it's not about monitoring students and staff, like that's what me
It's
and
not the
Principal
job of
Wiley.
CRO.
Exactly.
It's not the job.
No, it's not, absolutely, and
Okay.
that's, and I think every time that we have an opportunity to reinforce that with students, with staff, with families, with our community, is something that we should be doing and not something that we should be taking for granted. Because it's gonna be, we have to be the guardians of this, right? Like, we have to make sure that we continue to make sure that all families feel welcome in our school, and that all families understand the purpose and the reasons and how we are carefully watching and working with this, because, while I truly do believe it has been a wonderful opportunity for some of our kids and for our families, it's only gonna remain as wonderful as long as we continue to keep a really close eye on that piece and continue to grow our partnership. And this is part of it.
I think it's only fair to the CRO as well. I mean, say we have a security system and now you have this thing, if that person thinks that it's their job to be sitting and monitoring it, and we're not making it clear that no, it's not, that's not fair either, to not set the expectations for that person either, so.
Absolutely. And I do believe that one of the critical reasons it has gone so well to this point has been the level of communication and the conversation, and really just talking through things, like when they come up and saying, like, where do people step in, where do people step out, where does this, the more we talk about it, the more that we work through it, I think the more transparent we are, and I think people are better prepared to fulfill the roles within the school building.
If anyone after this meeting thinks of anything they would like the policy committee to discuss or consider, it is on the agenda to talk about it in the next meeting. So, feel free to reach out to myself or Mrs. Canal, and we'll bring those up and discuss it at policy.
Was policy changed from before the meeting? Is that
Yeah.
the new date is going to be an off meeting night, so.
Right, so we'll get to that when we get to the policy section, but going forward, they will be, policy committee meetings will no longer be right before the board meetings. After tonight.
My second bullet is in regards to district-wide training. So two of the areas that is very clearly outlined within our strategic plan and is a priority to our school district is district-wide training in the area of bias training and also in the area of restorative practices. So we have been working very closely with Roseanne Bain. She comes to us from City BOCES. She spent her second day with us this past Friday and has worked closely with our teachers around what is bias, that bias is a natural part of the human condition. And really it's what we do with that and knowing and recognizing and checking ourselves. So we did quite a bit of work with her. The staff has met with her for now a total of 4 hours. And part of this secondary meeting that we just had was taking a look at some of our own data. You know, and really, it's really about looking at yourself. Looking at ourselves as a school, looking at ourselves as individuals, and we will continue that work with her over the course of the school year, so that we can ensure that all students are successful in the system. So we started with Roseanne in the morning, and then we moved right into restorative practices, and we finished up the first set of training for restorative practices. We worked with Heather and Caitlin. They're also out-of-state OCs, and they have been working with our staff for, I think, a total of probably 10 hours now at the start of the school year. And they are really looking at what are restorative practices, what do they mean, and how do we ensure that we utilize them within our school setting. The piece that I think is really important and that we talked a lot about within our setting and that we continue to talk about here at school is that 80% of restorative practices is preventative. It's in the relationships, it's in building trust, it's in building community. So we spent quite a bit of time looking at that piece, and then we looked into the second piece of it, which really looks at, okay, once harm is done, what do we do? And what can be those pieces and parts that connect to the students' actions and then rebuilding community within the school. I would, give us a thank you to Principal Wiley. She has been working with our staff, and she had extensive experience in restorative practices, and she's been able to bring some of that circle work and some of that work to our students as some more significant issues have arisen. And it's really, gone are the days where something happens, you're out for a 5-day suspension, and then you come back in on the 6th day like nothing happened, right? Like we know those practices don't work. So when we do have to deliver some sort of consequences, and that doesn't mean the suspensions go away completely, but what is the other piece? It has to be an and. Are there consequences that need to occur, and can we look at restorative practices so that we can help learn and grow from those? So that work continues. I would say the formal training in restorative practices has come to an end, but we will continue to partner with them and do modules and continue to do the work here. And then we will look towards follow-up work in the next school year, and we'll be looking at the restorative justice piece, the social justice piece, and that piece as part 2. I think it's important that our staff be able to take what we have done, apply it, work, and learn with it, so that when we're ready for the next cycle, we don't want to just be checking box. So we will continue to partner with them, we'll continue to work with them, and we will really work to continue to implement within our school. Any questions regarding the district-wide training that we've been undertaking? The next piece is board appreciation. Thank you. The work of board members is something that is critical to the democratic processes that we have here in schools. And while many people may assume that there's compensation that goes along with it, there's not. It is truly community and civic service. So we thank you for your time. We thank you for the questions that you ask, conversations that you bring forward, and the work that you do on behalf of our students every single day. We're here for about an hour and a half to an hour each month, but we also know that we give you a lot of information. And there's a lot of conversations that occur and a lot of work that is done outside of these meetings. So thank you. And if you haven't had an opportunity, our first and third grade have been working very closely together. And they, in first grade in particular, talk about communities and community leaders. So they've been partnering with their third graders and created a banner. And some of the pictures, which you have to get up a little close to see some of what they are things that they are grateful that you have supported and that you continue to help provide for our students here at Menands School. So thank you to you, and then there's also a certificate at each of your chairs.
I suggested we can hold it up and you guys can run through it at some point if you want.
Our own version of homecoming. So thank you.
That's the backdrop for the yearbook.
It sure is. Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My next bullet for you is around New York State testing. The results continue to be embargoed. We cannot discuss them at public meetings yet. We do have them. We are working with faculty and staff to ensure that students get the additional supports that they need and the instruction that best matches where they were on not only that, time, that picture of time escape testing is, right? It's a snapshot of time. But we use that measure along with other measures to determine what students need. So that work is well underway. Principal Wiley and I have been talking about more than that. They do become the less you release. that she will do a presentation for the Board of Education where we stand. Because remember, this is our reset year. This is the year where we move to the next generation standards. I will tell you, they are not incredibly different than Common Core standards, but they are calling this kind of our reset year. This is going to be our baseline and where we need to grow from. So we will have a full presentation for you once we are able to do so.
And
And
then
then,
giving you any kind of time frame for that?
so I think we have like our students' individual scores, but one of the things that they will provide for us, and it really is pretty amazing how much information they do eventually provide. You know, we will have information that we'll be able to look and see where we stand compared to our neighbors. You know, our proficiency level is similar. They will give us an incredible amount of data around subgroups, where they are proficient, where they are not proficient. And then I was sharing with our AIS teachers, our support teachers, once the data is really fully accessible, we're even able to look at where are students struggling on which standards. Can we look at our standards as a school? Do we have, you know, are kids having a hard time with like vocabulary using context clues? Because if there's a high number of kids that are struggling with that, that may be a programmatic challenge, not necessarily a student specific, so we will be able to dive deeper into those areas. But I think some of that simply just takes time. And there is a lot of, being the baseline year, they're doing, I would believe, probably a lot of work around that data and making sure that we have the best accessible data that we can. I would say it normally does not take this long. If you have remembered in your past years, we usually get embargo results end of July, but by the time teachers come back in September, they're usually released, and we're able to jump right in. But it's just, this happened back in 2012 as well. It took a little bit of time. So we are waiting, and we are, you know, relying on the other data points and data sets that we have at this point in time. Any other questions regarding literacy testing? And then last but not least, I wanted to provide an update around the district vehicle. We had a truck that the village is willing to sell to us for $1, but one of the things that me and Mrs. Moran wanted to do was work with the village to have the village checked by a mechanic. Because we want to make sure that we have a truck. We do see a use for it within our operations and maintenance department. And we do think it is something that's beneficial, but also, you know, what you want to buy something that's going to be useful. So after the mechanic looking it over, it does need some work. So the strap for the gas tank needs to be replaced. It just needs a general tune-up. And then also the windshield wiper motor needs to be replaced. Now the mechanic said that it's less than $1,000 worth of work. However, I would feel much better saying to you it's less than $2,000 worth of work. He did a pretty comprehensive check, so don't get me wrong, but in all fairness, you know, it's just, I would feel more comfortable saying less than $2,000 worth of work. The piece that I will say to you is even if it was up to $2,000 worth of work, I do think it has great benefit to the district, and I do think that the truck is valued at much more than that. And I would ask Mrs. Moran, is there anything else that you would add? Because you've been talking directly to, directly around the truck.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. The cost they say is somewhere, you know, around $1,000, a little less. Again, I agree with Jen. I would assume I asked questions and threw out words like bearings, things like that I know. They said they gave it a comprehensive review, and right now that's all that needs it. So it does come with a plow. That's not our intention to use it for that, but it does allow us to move materials back and forth on site, and I do think we do have a need for that. So I'm in agreement.
I would say with the district vehicle, should come board policy. You know, so if that is something that,
Bless you.
you know, it is my recommendation that we do purchase it for $1. We consulted with the attorneys. They will give us a document that we will use as part of the board, you know, the board acceptance of it, saying that, you know, it was purchased for $1, but it also did need work. And that's something that you really need to do with the state comptroller's office. But, you know, in addition to that, I would say that we will have to follow that policy, and internal procedures and checks as well, right? Like how, who, how, what, when, those sorts of things, and then move ahead with that. So questions from the board, you're thinking around this.
No questions, I think it sounds pretty good.
It's fine, I think it's useful and worth the
the amount, yeah, like you said, just drawing up the policy or whatever. And I don't know if we need to like check, because that puts us in a position of checking licenses of people.
That would
and
be
things like
something that we did, yes.
Right.
Yep.
For, you know, since we're.
You would have to have a
gonna be
valid New York State driver's license, and it also would become a requirement, or it could become a requirement with people that we hire in O&M. It doesn't have to be, but.
Right, depending on what their function is, right, that's something we expect them to be able
Correct.
to do.
Questions?
Just a few. I know it comes with a plow, right? And there's a lot of mechanical electronics and hydraulics with plows. We check that too, I'm assuming, and that's acceptable.
Yep.
My reservation with people who don't know how to use the plow and that the district's not gonna use it as a plow vehicle is it can damage everything from sidewalk curbing to blacktop to grass. And that may be an additional expense the district's not prepared for because they haven't thought that part through if someone doesn't know how to use the plow.
Right.
But I just wanted to put that out there.
And that is something that I absolutely understand, and not something that we would use. That's not the primary reason we're interested in.
Right.
The primary reason we're interested in is to be able to go to True Value, go to Home Depot, take care of our own business with our own stuff. The plow, to me, would be a nice incidental if someone did know how to use it, or at least be trained adequate, well, because I understand all of those concerns. They exist every year, especially with mud, grass, curbing, all of it. So it's not something that
New
is the,
blacktop that's coming.
Yeah,
Right,
it's-
we're spending a fortune on that, we should make sure that it.
correct. And that is
Someone
not
knows
the
what they're
primary reason that we're
Understood.
interested.
Just
So, and I do
mentioning.
understand that and appreciate that concern.
My only other comment was, and in the past, and I was involved with some state contracts, and we used state vehicles, everyone had to attend mandatory driver training. Is that something the district's looking at doing?
Well, I'll be honest with you, in all of the schools I've worked in, that's never been something they had to go through. They did have to have a check to make sure they had a valid New York State driver's
Sure.
license, but not a specific training course. I can look into that, but I would be, I think,
Insurance-wise, is there any issues there?
no, actually, I'm waiting on his response to that. No, there isn't any, it doesn't require collision, is that what it is? Collisions because of the age of the vehicle. But I'm expecting that to come in well under $1,000 annually.
And if, because it's the only district vehicle we own,
Correct.
correct? So we're on the road. So would there be a benefit if drivers of that vehicle were in a course or had taken a
Well,
course,
you know what, we can-
insurance-wise?
We certainly can look into that. So yes, I will look into
Just-
that and give you an update, but I don't know right now.
How's the outside of the?
I don't know, I haven't seen it yet. I'll take pictures and send them this week. I'll send somebody down with a camera. I haven't seen it either.
I'm not saying we should spend a ton of money, but maybe some sort of like, Menands school logo on it or something.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
No, I
Not
agree.
like a full wrap, maybe.
Little tiger scratch on
I,
it.
we'll cover any dent. No, I do agree with you though. It should be like,
So the last item that I would have for you this evening, and it's not listed, but I would like to share with you, we got a formal notice this afternoon that our building project has been accepted by SED and approved. So congratulations to the board as a whole, you worked very hard with that, not long. And we will be working with CSR in order to take the next steps. So stay tuned, but we're officially going to be moving forward.
That's great.
Thank you.
that's excellent. That's really good. That date is very important to a school district. When you have a capital project, when you have the commissioner's approval date, that's when your clock starts ticking for your eligibility for state aid. It's 18 months, depending on if the work's done, your final cost report has to be done. So the sooner we have that, the better. So I think it's wonderful that we have it now. We'll be in great alignment with the timing for getting the RFP, the specs out and the bids out. So couldn't have ended any better, I think, to get the work done this summer. And if it doesn't rain again and no snow piles up on the roof, we'll have it rain.
Even better. Takes us to business matters, non-action items. Business office, non-action items, warrants. Opposed? For the information of the board are copies of the following warrants and claims auditor report for the month of September 2023. So 2 warrants, 8/13 and 8/16, the reports were attached. Does anybody have any questions on those? Okay, budget transfers under $10,000. There's a PDF over there, if anybody has any questions. Skip one.
10,000 transfer, under 10,000.
Revenues. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, sorry. Budget transfers under 10,000. All right, no questions. Appropriation status report. Any questions there? Item D, non-action items, revenue status report. Any questions on that one? Okay, that takes us to business matters, action items. Item A, budget transfers over $10,000. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be resolved that the authorization of the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approve the attached budget transfers over $10,000 for September 2023.
Second.
Are there any questions on these?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Contracts for approval. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District hereby approves the following contracts A through
Just A.
A for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, action items, treasurer's report. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approve the treasurer's report for the month of September 2023.
Any questions about either of these reports? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Action item D, revision of annual amalgam salary agreements. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approve the updated 2023-2024 annual acknowledgement of salary agreements for non-instructional and administrative staff.
That's the Juneteenth one.
Right, it looks like I see the updated document wasn't in here, but just, this is maybe just what was changed.
Yeah.
The note.
Absolutely. So Juneteenth was a state holiday, so the last couple of years, you were taking board action in June in order to comply with the state holiday. It has now moved to become a federal holiday. So as a federal holiday, we include federal holidays in our terms and conditions. So that was just bringing terms and conditions to that point so that everybody had it in there. And we'll have it moving forward now that it is formally a federal holiday.
Okay, any other questions? We have a second on the floor, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Takes us to E, action items, disposal of items. Can I get a resolution, please?
Be resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approves the disposal of the items in the attached document.
Second.
Any questions with like some outdated assessment tools and some perhaps unused gym equipment?
Yes. So we have very outdated gymnastics equipment that we no longer utilize and takes up a lot of space on the stage. And we've held on to it for 6 or 7 years now, like just in case. And it's no longer utilized with the equipment units, and quite frankly, is a safety hazard backstage, particularly drama season. Somebody always trips over the horse.
Is that part of gym anymore? The horse and parallel bar or yoga or whatever, that's not
I'm the
something
road.
that, you don't have to climb a rope or anything?
Not the time where we don't touch the ceiling anymore.
Thanks.
A lot of injuries have resulted from that, so,
Learn, jump over the horse, let's go.
And I know you said that the reading material of the assessment kits cannot be used. Is there anyone that would have any interest in the gym equipment, or is it not really in good enough condition to?
it's not.
Yeah, okay.
We will certainly put it out there. If there is somebody who can use it, we certainly would welcome them and offer it. But my guess is probably, and then the assessment tools, they're outdated at this point in time. And many districts are actually moving away from those specific assessment tools.
And there was a couple of gymnastics places in there. If no schools are using them, other schools not going to put maybe a gymnastics place or something like that, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so all in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Takes us to item F, donations. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands BOE School District accept the following donations and tax document.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Was the school supply donation was nice out of the from NISTEC, who's NISTEC?
Alongo had, he had a connection and that's the donation we had worked together on. It's very nice.
This has to be capital repairs.
And that is what's at nice that is something to
Right, you did that, so, yeah, that's
I still don't know
wonderful.
what you're talking
We certainly appreciate that,
Mhm.
and the camera donation as well. Okay, that takes us to G, action items, audit approval. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the audit committee that the Board of Education accept the 2022, 2023 external audit as completed by Weston Company.
Were there any questions about the audit report? I know some of us were able to make it to the committee meeting where they went through it at length, but for anyone else that wasn't at the meeting, didn't have a chance to ask questions, any questions? I'm still looking there. I was at the meeting, it was, they said it was a pretty clean audit. They even say they have one minor finding, which is the same one they find every year, which is that our reserves are over 4%, which dollar-wise is not a huge amount for our district. They said everything else was in great shape. I thank Joanne and the whole administrative team for getting that completed. There's no questions. All in favor of accepting the report? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item H, action items reserve fund transfer. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Menands.
There's gonna be one update, sorry, to the resolution. It's capital repair
Repair
fund,
reserve.
not repair reserve
It's the
fund.
capital repair reserve when you read it, please. Thank you, sorry. I'm adding one word.
Be it resolved that the Menands Union Free Board of Education approve the transfer not to exceed $35,000 from the capital repair reserve to the general fund to be used for HVAC repairs as discussed at public hearing on September 11, 2023.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that takes us to policy. So we do have, again, as we mentioned, we did have a policy committee right before this meeting. So I apologize, there are 2 policies on here that you haven't seen, and I'll talk about them a little bit, and if people want to transfer them, they can. So the 2 that we have are the opioid overdose prevention. It's not something we have a policy on right now. It's basically what would we do in the event of an overdose. Right now, we don't have Narcan on site. This policy would allow us to have a standing medical order for Narcan and allow our school nurse or any other building personnel who are willing to be trained on the administration of Narcan to students, to staff, The policy does specifically say students and staff, but we've talked about if we were to have a visitor, if we have somebody in the assembly, a parent, somebody at a concert, an older sibling, a cousin, suffering from an overdose, the staff administering our plan would still be able to administer it and be covered with the Good Samaritan law. So we would like to bring this to you for a first reading, not a final reading. If anybody has any questions or.
That was my question, right? Early on in the resolution, or the policy, it says that, quote, administered only to students and staff. And then further on, it says emergency on-site during the school day or at any on-site school-sponsored activity. But it doesn't specifically say someone who's not a student or staff.
Right.
It's saying after hours, student or staff.
Yeah.
So are you going to change the wording to say?
So we cannot change the wording of the policy, and the reason is because when we place a standing order for medication, the medication gets ordered for our students and staff.
Okay.
It doesn't get ordered for.
So is
our
it
teachers.
assumed then we know the Good Samaritan law, or people know it, or how does that work?
I would think it'd be part of the training, that when if staff, we have staff that volunteer to take on this role, that they would be trained and told that they can use that anymore.
So will someone be trained to use it at events that are after school hours?
We talked about that also.
Who would be the on-site go-to person?
So it's going to be voluntary.
Okay.
One of the things that, we talk a lot about in our policy committee is it should be people who want to be trained, and who are willing to act in the event of an emergency. So, we will make that training available to any school employee, whether it be our nighttime custodial workers, or teachers, or aides, or administrators, clerical staff, anybody who is willing to be trained will be trained. And part of the training is if you were to administer Narcan to someone who was not having an overdose, it does not harm them. And that is part of the piece that we would share. But overall, it would be based upon who is willing to be, willing to be trained. I will say absolutely our nurse will be trained, our administrative staff will be trained, and then beyond that, we would ask for folks that were willing and able to, one, be trained, but also act in the event of an overdose.
Do you think any of those people who are identified in our emergency response plan should be one of those, we should not pressure them, but should strongly suggest they be part of that group that is trained?
Right, it'd be, fantastic if the best case scenario is,
If everyone jumped on it, right?
well, yeah, if everyone jumped out, but I was thinking specifically people who are here after hours, right? When administrators aren't always necessarily, custodial staff is here during CYO games or PTA events, things like that.
I don't know what the access would be to that. I'm sure
So
the access to the products would be.
it would be
locking
stored in
through
our, it would be stored in our AED box.
Oh, perfect.
I'll also mention that it's not part of the policy, that our CRO has Narcan on it already. I believe in his car, right? It's like part of his, he's already trained on how to use it and has it as his part of his police duties. Those give us access in the building when the CRO is on site. Any other questions about opioid prevention before I complete the policy? Is there anyone who would not be comfortable moving it to a first reading tonight? This would not make it policy, this would just allow us to move it to the next step. Okay, the second policy that we have for your consideration is the use of timeout room and physical restraints. It might be better to talk about this one.
So we did have this policy on the books. However, over the summer, there were some substantial changes made through the state education department, and this policy reflects those changes. So one of them being, if a student was involved in a physical restraint with staff, there used to be a 24-hour window that you had to notify parents. It now requires same-day notification. Some of the documentation requirements have been increased. The idea of a timeout room, we do not have a timeout room here at Menands, but some of those, some of the regulations around that has changed. And last but not least, the use of aversives is no longer allowed, period. Aversives were very closely monitored and could be part of a student's IEP. However, they are no longer allowed in New York State. So that piece of the policy has been deleted as well. And that policy has, I've been through our committee, but also has been reviewed and edited by school districts as well to ensure that we are compliant with the new regulations through the State Education Department. And then Mrs. Frank, who this has been a very large topic of conversation through her special education meetings, was part of that policy update as well.
The exhibit that's in here is the form that the staff uses anytime there is an incident that it needs to be reported on. The staff started using the form. It talks about the notification, it talks about why was restraint, why were restraints needed, what did you factor, certain things.
What's an adversive? Aversive? What is it?
So it's an action, sorry,
No, please, go ahead.
that staff would do. It's hard without giving an example, like, it's basically a threat in a way, or kind of using something that I don't like in order to get them what you want them to do. And up until the summer, it was allowed, and it's not anymore. It's not a best practice by any means. A lot of schools did that away many years ago, but it was a practice in New York State up until like July or August.
And it is not a practice that has been used here in my time.
We also had some conversation around physical restraints in the meeting because that's a phrase that sounds very scary. It's something for restraining children with, mechanical devices, which is not what that refers to. Is doctor prescribed things. She said, like perhaps a helmet, or if you had a student who couldn't hold themselves up in their chair, like a seatbelt or something, anything that's physically restricting a child is not something that we would put on. It would be something that they had a prescription from a doctor or a therapist.
Also, the use of seclusion is not prohibited in New York State, so that was having a student in a space, say, putting a student in a classroom and sitting outside the classroom and physically holding the door shut. That's prohibited in New York State now, as well as some restraints will be used.
Does anyone have any questions about this policy or concerns about moving it to a first reading? Okay, we have our first and a second motion to move into a first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Did you actually read that?
Sorry.
Did someone actually make a motion and read the resolution and someone seconded it?
I don't think, I think it was on Michelle, but I don't think it was read
Oh,
yet.
I apologize. Okay, could I get the resolution then? Sorry.
Be resolved that the Menands School District Board of Education hereby approve the first reading of the following policies as listed. The use of timeout room and restrictions and opioid overdose prevention.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now motion carries. And it takes us to item B, this is final reading of policies. Let's get the resolution first.
Be resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands BOE School District, upon the recommendation of policy committee, approve the final reading of the following policy as listed. 8334, use of credit cards.
I'll second it.
Okay, are there any questions on this one? This is the same that we had last time. We had it for our first reading last time. This is a final reading. Any questions on it? Okay, then all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Personnel matters, letter of resignation. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District accept the letter of resignation effective close of business October 18, 2023 for Elizabeth Nick. Second.
Yeah, if we don't approve that, we can just say. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, and we want to thank Liz Medically, wish her much success and luck in her future endeavors. She has kindly, for the boards, I think it was part of one of the updates, but she has agreed to stay on as board clerk, which we greatly appreciate. That's a later agenda item, I think, but it's a big help, so thank you for agreeing to do that.
Thank you all for everything. It wasn't an easy decision at all, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Item B, personnel agenda, could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approves the personnel agenda as attached. There's 4 things we're going to read.
You don't need to, you can just say it's listed.
As listed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item C, tenure. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I just want to take an opportunity, Nicole has joined us this evening. She is going to be our special education teacher for our sophomore training program for our primary students. Nicole will come to us from the Langland School, and will be able to start with us in mid-November, so we certainly welcome her, and we're excited to have her come on board and lead that classroom. So thank you, Nicole, and welcome.
Welcome to all.
Nicole, I will also say, thank you for being here this evening. You are more than welcome to join us for the remainder of the Board of Education meeting. However, you are also more than welcome to go home, and I'm sure that you have a busy evening preparing for your day tomorrow with students. So please feel free if you would like to depart this evening, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
Okay, item C, tenure adjustment. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District hereby modifies the end date of the following probationary appointment in accordance with the University Education Law. Staff updated end date from August 31st, 2025 to February 2nd.
Just a note, this is just to adjust her date to account for a leave that she had taken, is that right?
Yeah, she had taken a leave, absence from her teaching assistant role to fill a long-term sub position as a MAC/AIS teacher, which when she does that, that pushes her tenure out by the number of days that she was in that position. So that's just to reflect that opportunity that she took advantage of.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Item D, kindergarten warm-up week. Is there a resolution? Yeah, go ahead. It's just a recommend.
The Menands Union Free School District Board of Education approves the stipends as listed below in the form of the August 2023.
Second.
Okay, go ahead, John.
That is just simply, those individuals have been compensated when we were reviewing and going through things. These specific actions had not been listed. So we wanted to go ahead and take the necessary board action to ensure that we were in compliance.
And they have already been paid.
They have already been paid. This time was approved, through some of the work that Maureen, Dr. Long had done, but we didn't have the action items too.
It's grant funded as well.
Yes.
Just want you to know that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item carries. Item E, consultation for transition purposes, Elizabeth Menands. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District authorize Elizabeth Menands to act in a consultant capacity as may be required by the superintendent on and as needed basis up to 15 hours per month for the 2023-2024 school year. Such consultation shall be payable at $35 an hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again, Liz. Agreeing to stay on and do that. Item 7, superintendent program recommendations. CSE, CPSE recommendations. Could I get a resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District hereby approves the CSE CPSE recommendations as submitted.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, substitute teachers fully cleared.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Menands Union Free School District approves the substitute teachers in the attached document for the 2023-2024 school year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
carries. Takes us to administrative updates, principals' comments.
That's a good comment.
Can't say it.
So we've had a busy last couple weeks since we last saw you guys. I do have to admit that when I was preparing this, I feel like Andrew Catone, who is our communications guy, has been killing it with his communication, but he's like stealing all my thunder for like this, so I'm gonna have to talk really in just a little bit, so. But he is doing a great job, so, we did do Jim Camp Jen Cook when I last saw you guys, they were headed out there, it did rain, but they survived and had a great time. I think Ms. Canavo and I went up, and I know PJ was up there, and actually Andrew was up there. So I wanted to thank Ms. Bettinger and Mr. Herman for putting this together and hanging out with the kids and having, just a great time with them. The kids absolutely loved it. They did not care about the rain. Liz, I'm gonna have to stop right there. So this is a video, but I know because we're in PDF. It's okay, Liz, don't worry about it. Because what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna play the sound effects of the video because you have to hear this. So this is a student who is up on the ropes and is like, this isn't scary, anyone can do this. Like, come on guys, get it together. And then she gets up there and, and she just had the time of her life here. Can you hear the entire thing? So, the whole way over. So I didn't realize this would be PDF, but I didn't get to, I really wanted you to hear the sound effects because that really summarized the entire, the trip. So they had a great time. I didn't know what to expect because it was my first time going and seeing the kids try things, one more step, you got it. You can just go one more step into the tree and cheering each other on. It was just I think it's just the greatest way ever to start 8th grade. And we're going to continue to share with our community. You ready for the noise? Good sport student.
I loved it.
She's so all the way to the trees. and the best part is, there's full of cucumber list.
Elizabeth, it sounded like you loved it.
Character building.
Yeah, yes. So she was cool as a cucumber going out telling everybody she's got it and then lost her mind, but it was great. As we know, the bio bus was here and the kids loved that. I think there was a little bit of we might have done these things before from the teachers. The kids didn't remember, didn't care, and loved every minute of it. We got great reviews from the people that ran the classes. BioBus sent us an email thanking us for our students and teachers' cooperation. It was just a great time. So a couple of the things they learned about our cells and vertebrates and habitats. I saw a pregnant invertebrate in a microscope and learned a ton myself. So that was a good time. And what else we got? Clubs are up and going. Yep, we got our clubs and sports are moving and grooving. I didn't get a great picture of Bill up there, but there you are up there. Not great picture. I'll do better next time. So they are going. The kids are very excited about them. Always every day when they're coming in off the bus, what clubs are today? I have my stuff, and it's today my day. So they're very excited and grateful for the time that you guys spend with those kids doing those activities. That was our cross-country meet. Kindergarten 8th grade connection. So technology class in 8th grade built rockets, and the kindergartners were learning about force and motion. So they invited them down to see them take off. PJ was so excited to launch his rocket. Like, so excited, I can't even tell you. And Officer Coleman made an appearance to launch his as well. So it was a community effort. The eighth graders were also excited. You see the kindergartners there, excited. They were counting down, 3, 2, 1, blast off. It was a whole thing. I think there might be on the next slide, Liz, yeah, you'll see the kindergartners. So that was such a good time. They had a great time doing that. So going on over there, Liz. So I just want to show you a couple pictures. I know Superintendent Knott already spoke about our Superintendent's Day, which was really a great success. This is us in our giant restorative circle, and I think we're really ready to kind of move along with that. Thinking about what a circle does and how it builds community. And we spent a lot of time talking about how to ready connects with Responsive Classroom and the things that are already going on in classrooms. So it's really like, Responsive Classroom is our tier 1. It's what we do all day. It's who we are as teachers. And then this restorative piece is like an offshoot of it. It's a build up of it. So I think our teachers are in a really great place to move along with restorative practices. So we did that, and then they went out and the staff did some circle ideas. What could circles look like, and how could they plan them in their classes? And these are just some ideas that staff came up with, and thinking about proactive circles. The goal of becoming a community member, the goal of understanding conflict, a lot of social, emotional stuff. But they also began to think about how circles could work academically, which was a new idea for our staff as well. And I went into a Miss Kepler's class today, actually, and I didn't know you were going to be here. I know, and I didn't know you were going to be here, so this wasn't planned. Just doing some walking around today, seeing what cool things the kids are doing in 2nd grade. They're doing some landforms out of Play-Doh and learning about their communities. So the kids were pretty excited to make different landforms. They had all these different pictures on the ground, and they had to make landforms out of Play-Doh and connect them and figure out how they connect. So that was a fun activity. I didn't know Ms. Kepler would be here, but shout out to you. And this popped onto my radar this afternoon, and I thought I would share this with you. I had 2 young students, their 3rd grade teacher, emailed me and said, I have a couple students that would like to see you. They have a proposal. So they came with their written proposal and sat in my office, as you see, and made a proposal included with pictures and a plan. And I am just a sucker for kids who advocate, who look around and see a need in their community and see what has to change in order to make it better, and then act on it, right? Like, we don't want kids who just sit around and complain or upset about something. We want them to learn how to do something. So these 2, Andrew and Addison, came to me with their proposal, and their proposal is that they have been cleaning the field by hand every day at recess, and there's no garbage can. And they are bothered by the fact that there is no garbage can because they are bringing bags out by themselves and doing it on their own. They created a little garbage club at recess in order to clean up the garbage out in that field. So they have requested funding for a garbage can to be put out there. I said that I would talk to the board about it tonight, and that we could discuss that, where we could either fundraise or come up with a garbage can to put out there. They did agree to paint it and make it look very nice out there so that it fits with our community feel. So I just wanted to share that this happened today, and I'm very proud of these 2 young people and their teachers. So I appreciated that. Yeah. Coming up. So I just had dinner with my dad. My dad said, "What'd you get to Columbus Day? Like, the year's basically over." And I was like, "Dad, you know what's coming up? Like, it's not over. We're just getting started." So cross-country meet this week, soccer games this week, fire prevention week. The fire department is visiting this week. The kids are going to go out to the fire truck. Firemen are going to come in and do some prevention tips in the auditorium with the classes. We have picture day coming up, progress reports. We have parents' night out on Friday. I know we've been trying to push that out to get some parents to drop off their kiddos. Every child travel safely is coming up. Pre-K and kindergarten are going to Elms Farm, which will be very exciting. They're thrilled to go be able to do that. And then Regeneron is coming into third grade and they're doing a bunch of STEM activities for a couple hours with the kids there. So, got a lot coming our way. Any questions for me?
What's Elm's Farm?
It's
Apple picking.
Yes.
Pumpkins, apple picking, everything.
Hey,
Rides, yeah.
Donuts.
Yeah, it's a deal matter. Everybody really, kind of like that.
Where is it in relation to us?
Yeah.
Boston Spa.
Boston Spa. I don't think I've heard of Elm's Farm.
30 minutes. So 35.
Do you know on the PTA, the parents' night out that's coming up on Friday? Can I drop off my high schoolers?
You're good. You're good to go.
That was good.
It's a bargain.
There you go.
We'll be there to watch it, we read it.
Yeah.
PG, we'll watch that. Thank you for the update, that's amazing. Do you have garbage can in use, or do you actually, we need funding for a garbage can?
We'll find
Make this happen.
We'll find
Yeah.
My 2 cents on that?
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it. Outdoor garbage cans, one, they need to have the cover, the lid, they can side throw the trash in, keeps the water from building up in the can.
Mhm.
And this time of year, bees are stupid. And they go because they sell something sweet, or they might, and that garbage cans are a host of that. I think it's a great idea and I support it. Just be mindful of
Okay.
the fall bees that
Yeah.
realize that it's not time to get honey out of
Gotcha.
the nectar out of the flower.
I think they're finding things that are not, they're things that seem to be appearing after school hours. So it's not necessarily like our kids are bringing food and lunch out there. I think that there are people hanging out, although yes, I think that's part of it. But I think there are people here playing at night and walking and doing other things and, they're finding all types of items.
Maybe there's a garbage can, or almost another down.
Right, that's what they were thinking.
What do you mean, something?
Yeah.
Right, we need to tie it to like the bench or something like that, I was thinking, get a chain, to tie it. I was gonna talk to Ed about, Superintendent Connolly, I have no idea what to do this right now. Not a clue.
You know, the chain, you fill a 4-inch plastic tube, like a drain tube with sand and weed it,
Oh, okay.
and then put the bag on top of it.
But it's not for holding it in place, people will just take it home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, take it out.
Even the oldest,
No,
not
it's
nice,
fine. Take it out.
you know, with the
It's like wheelbarrows, they don't steal wheelbarrows, they don't do work. And that doesn't work, no. Let's make sure our logo gets out there, and maybe our class and put them in the hands.
Well, the kids are gonna work with our teacher to make something out of it, so that it represents them and they're thinking about making a trash club. They asked if they could make a club to help clean up the environment. Yep, so,
And I think, maybe the resolution should be, I'll make a, resolution to, recognize the efforts of the 2 students and, support the efforts of the students and this is why and getting the trash can.
I would second that.
All fair? Opposed? Motion
Thank
carries.
Thank you.
I also wanted to say I appreciate both of your comments on the feedback on the training for the restorative practices, the restorative circles. We've been talking about that here for a long time since our goal-setting meetings back, several years ago. And it's just, at that time, it just felt so far away. We just didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't even know how to start and see that, finally come into the training and come, it's gonna be coming into the classrooms. That's just fantastic. I appreciate that so much. Okay, that takes us to, comments around there again, which probably is not right.
Different.
It is.
Okay, yes, all right. Superintendent's comments.
So thank you for your support to attend. In this case, that has been something annually that you've always supported the superintendent or school attending. I spent from Sunday through Tuesday in Saratoga at that conference, working with colleagues from across the state and attending different trainings and really being able to bring that information back. So thank you for that opportunity. Some of the highlights of the conference, there was some work on common absenteeism, which is a problem for schools across the state, and really post-pandemic, the urgency to get your kids to school isn't as urgent as it used to be. Things change. So how do we get kids back into school bring families back into school? So we spent some time talking about that across, along with legislative updates and things of that nature. So thank you for that opportunity to attend. We have the NISBA convention coming up. That'll be out in Buffalo at the end of the month. I encourage you to, start taking a look at some of the sessions that are offered. And then, one of the things that we will work to do is upon our return is bring that information back to the board and figure out a way to bring that information back, based on the different opportunities that we experienced while we're there. And then last but not least, and this is very cursory, is a state ed update. They did release that PE eligibility. That percentage is going to be lowered to 25%. USDA lowered it. And the piece for us was, are they going to reopen the application? And in fact, they are. I will say that there are details for us to go through and take a look at. You have your federal reimbursement. The state will do some level of reimbursement. But I will also say that I will be working closely with Joanne on that to understand the level of reimbursement. What does that mean for us, and how do we make meals more accessible to our kids, breakfast and lunch? So we will work for that. Please stay tuned. And we'll provide more information and updates as it is, coming forth, because we've never been in a position to apply for that. So, we certainly want to work to do everything we can to get food into the hands of children. But we also want to make sure that we understand all the details so that we do so in a way that, works for the district as well. Right.
Yep. I'm going to talk a little bit this evening about fund balance and our reserves. And this is a draft format, because what I will do is, after our discussion this evening, we'll have the next month or so to kind of think about it. I'll review it again at next month's meeting, and we will have resolutions to adopt the reserve plan, which is something we have to do every year. I'm not going to go into any lengthy conversation today, but I am going to go through 5 slides on a fund balance, and then I'm going to go over the plan itself. But simply, fund balance is, at the end of the day, wherever we end June 30th in the previous year, we add our revenue and we subtract our expenditures. That net figure is our fund balance, whether it's assigned, unassigned, or in a reserve. If we have our expenditures are more than our revenues, it's going to be a negative hit to our fund balance. And if our revenues are higher than our expenditures, that would be a positive. For the board members and everybody else that was part of the audit committee last week, our fund balance, our excess fund balance, which is unassigned, not in a reserve, not being used to balance our budget, if it's over 4%, that's the hit we take on our audit. We also have to do a corrective action plan every year. How are we going to deal with that excess fund balance? And I can't say the board does not have a problem with it. We always want to try to recognize our reserves, fund them appropriately, and we do that. We did say in a part of our corrective action plan last year that we would reduce fund balance, and we did so by $38,000. So true to our word, our fund balance will bring it down a smidge. Would you go back to another slide, please? Thank you. Reserve fund balance, again, is committed for other purposes. Most of us know that. We're not dealing with anybody that's brand new to the board. They're committed for other purposes. They're the result of a Board of Education action or voter approval. We have a capital reserve, we have a repair reserve, we have a workers' compensation reserve, or a tax tertiary. Unreserved or assigned, how much is to be used to balance the budget? If many of you remember, this year we went from $800,000 in the 22-23 school year to $950,000 this year, because we brought that appropriation in to pay for the design work if the voters didn't approve that. Again, unassigned is the amount that is left after everything's said and done. The unassigned is the amount that's left. That's the amount that is restricted to 4% of the current year's budget. And again, that's the figure that can be scary if we have a family that is a high-need family, it could eat up our fund balance relatively quickly. So we are cautious with that. We pay attention to it, and we watch it. So I'm giving you a little bit of a history here. The most current year is over to the right, but I wanted you to see where our fund balance has been. And again, it is simply beginning balance, add your revenues, subtract your expenditures to where your fund balance is. All the way to the right are going to be the highlights in yellow, are going to be things that you're going to see at the next Board of Education meeting as action items. I will talk about increasing the TRS reserve. That's one of the few reserves that really has a calculation in it, and it can't be more than 2% of the previous year's teachers' instructional salaries, and you can never have more than 10% of the total teachers' salaries in that reserve. ERS doesn't have the same guidelines, but they are also reserves that we can use. You can start to use reserves on a regular basis as we build the budget. If we have extra money, we'll fund them. If we need to use it in a budget process, we can do that. The next one down is the capital reserve. We established that. I funded it this year. Even though we acted to fund it, the board did, prior to me getting here. We actually put the money in it. That's one of the nice things about this school district. We fund our reserves. So I'm going to also make a recommendation to this Board of Education that we increase the capital reserve by $100,000, up by $40,000 to get us to $100,000. I say that we are conservative with that reserve because that's a reserve that requires voter approval to spend it. We know that we have some debt coming off in 2027. I'm sure we're going to talk about that in our long-range financial plan this winter. And again, it's just a way to mitigate the impact on the taxpayer if we do another capital project. And then appropriated for revenues to balance the budget. I left that at 850 again. We haven't started the budget process yet. I'm leaving that at 850 for right now to look where we are. So you would see that if everything came in, if you go to the top of that and say revenues are what the budget is, expenditures are exactly what we budgeted, our ending fund balance would be the same. But again, because of the way we move it around, our unassigned fund balance will actually go up. But I'm not worried about that right this minute. I don't know what our figure is for next year. I'm basing that on what the 4% is of the 11.5 million. But again, that just gives it to you. If you'll go to the next slide, please, Liz. And again, some of the recommendation that I just talked about, and again, they'll be in resolution format next year. Or next month, I'm going to recommend that we increase TRS, that we increase the capital reserve, and we'll play around, we'll look at some others, but right now, those are the only two I really would recommend that we change. And if you'll go into the actual document for the reserve plan. And again, what the reserve plan does and what it's expected to do is to kind of give this Board of Education an idea of what we want to do with each individual reserve. And we've been doing this now. It's been something that has to be done for a few years now. And what I've done for you, and you can go, this is just an overview of the statute. What I've done, what I started doing last year, I don't remember how Kathy Coit did it, but I gave you each reserve, when it was established, if there was any activity in it. And I'm very, very happy to say that we will have activity next year based on how we're going to invest our funds, because right now they're not earning interest. This year they're going to be. So most of them don't have any activity. I'm going to give you the balance, and then the ideal balance, gives you the purpose and then what the ideal balance would be. Again, unemployment is one of the ones we can use. It doesn't require a lot. Tax certiorari, every audit purpose, every audit year, the auditor, Amy, will look at that, make sure that any of the assessment challenges we have, what we have in that fund is adequate in case we don't recognize that tax revenue. Retirement contributions for ERS, and then the sub-fund for TRS. ERS has been in, it's been established longer than the TRS, and the ERS does not have any restrictions. You can fund it to whatever. I'm not going to make it excessive. I don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb. But the TRS, again, I would be very comfortable to increase that reserve by $50,000 or $55,000. And I'm going to give you this, again, format in a more formal setting at the beginning of the meeting next month. And then the employee benefit reserve is all the money that we would use to pay if we had a large number of teachers or employees retiring and we had a substantial payout, we would do that. And again, you can just keep going, Liz, I appreciate that. The repair reserve is what you acted today to fund, to take money out of that, put it in the general fund to redo this air handling unit on the top of this building, which is perfect because the state approved our facilities plan. So it's all going to come together perfectly this summer. That's my goal. And the capital reserve, again, that's one of the most restrictive reserves. It requires voter approval to fund and to spend. The repair reserve, I'll probably ask our voters to increase that if there's any assigned, because you have to vote on increasing a repair reserve annually. You don't have to vote to spend it, just have a public hearing. But I would like some language in a referendum to possibly fund that a little higher if we have excess funds next year. And that's what we're going to, just an overview, and we're going to talk about it again next month. Be happy to answer any questions. And then the other thing we're going to talk about in November is the senior exemption and the volunteer firefighter exemption. That's been quite an interesting conversation on the business official level. Not many schools have jumped into it. Some of them are talking about it now. We have until the end of February to take an action on that, but I'm waiting on a little bit more information from the village as to the number of emergency or volunteer firemen we have here. I'm going to go over what some of the challenges are with the law, the way it's written with that exemption, and what the challenges would be for us before we make that decision. And then if it's something this board would like, we would act on it, I would assume, in either December or January. And the other thing that we're going to be talking about is CEP in more detail. Again, it's not quite as easy as giving everybody a free meal and then getting all the revenues back. I'm going to be doing a deep dive into that because you get a percentage. You get so much money above where you end up on. Like if we have 35%, then we get an additional 6% in aid. I have never worked in a school district where that's been something that we've done. So Mr. Tian, Ms. Canavo, and myself will be spending quite a bit of time. So we have a real true awareness of how that could impact and what our responsibility would be from the general fund. Is the $35,000 that we transfer enough to cover what that would be? Well, we're going to be looking at that and be able to give the Board of Education a much deeper look into what CEP and how it will impact us financially. I do think it's going to be a positive one, but there's still a chance we may not recognize as much revenue as we have in the past. So,
Jumping back on the senior and firefighter exemption, that's an exemption on their property taxes?
correct.
And it's not all of it, right? It's like a percentage off
Yeah.
of their property
If
taxes.
so, right, so I'll give you a little bit of an overview. If somebody were to apply for it now, they would get 10% off of the assessed value of their home. Some of the challenges are there's no limit. So if 2 people own a home, 2 people could get that home. Names have to be on the deed, but still, if somebody owned an expensive house, like there's a house in Bethlehem, they happen to be the only one school district in it right now because they're getting a $8,000 savings on their tax bill. But some people with very expensive homes don't necessarily aren't volunteer firefighters. The onus of this comes on the local municipality that's going to have to govern it or approve it. When somebody puts in an application, they have to be active members. You can't just be someone that signs up and never goes. I'm not sure how they're going to police it. It doesn't expire. It's going to have to be maintained annually. The school district's going to have to own some of that. So again, when that happens and the assessments go down, it's not that the school district will get less money. It's that the other people in the district will pay a little bit more. I don't think our exposure is that great in the village of Menands, but we'll take a look at that as well.
And then going back to the reserve plan, just a question about the repair reserve.
Yep.
Are we able to replace the 35,000 without a vote, or if you're putting any more money in there at all?
Correct. You
So it
have
doesn't
to have
matter
a
that we
vote.
spend it down, we can't,
Correct.
anytime we're putting any more
Yep.
money in for any reason.
And correct, Courtney. And one of the things that I'll do is I'll see if we can make it a 2-year. I don't know if there's any limitations for the next 3 years. We can use any unspent appropriations to fund it back. I'll get all the ins and outs for that before we get into the budget.
Just restate that. Funding we need to vote for?
To
Or
fund
spending
a
we need to vote for?
repair reserve, your voters have to allow you to increase it. And again, I will tell you
That's not
that
just a public hearing for,
that's to spend it.
no, spending is.
Different, right? Yep.
My fault.
Nope. It actually used to be common language, and you just fund it. It's not allowed by law. So we'll do it the right way. That's it.
Just really quick on the CEP, is it looking like if there's more participation, the amount back to the district would increase? Is this a participation thing? Not necessarily the ones that are percentage, right? The percentage went from 40 to 25%. We're over 25% eligible. But if everyone participates in the lunch program now because the district's going to eat the difference, doesn't our money back from the feds and the state increase? Wouldn't that offset?
I don't believe it does. So I can't answer that. I don't know if Jen, if you have any information, but that's one of the things that I was very confused reading about, because you get a set amount based on the percentage where you are. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I will know it by the next
But
time.
then during COVID, when we were feeding everybody, or even the year after.
The rates were
COVID,
higher.
The rates were
We
higher.
were getting a lot more money. That's not going to change. We're not going to get higher reimbursement
Okay.
rate.
Okay.
But I will be able to speak to that much more information the next time we meet.
Thank you.
And I'll either cry or I'll be really happy.
That's part of that, thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? On these items? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 9, student matters enrollment updates. So city back, that's where we were last time. Okay, and then miscellaneous. Does anybody have anything for miscellaneous?
No, actually, no.
Really?
Oh, no. Let's move this right along.
That's first.
I think it's going to be.
Thought I did, but I honestly don't remember, so, if it's important, I'll remember for next time. Public comment. During public comment sessions, members of the community may address board members on agenda and non-agenda items. Board president may limit remarks to individual speakers. Speakers must identify themselves with top within the remarks. Does anybody have anything?
There's nothing online.
Do we have anyone even watching the program?
There's one viewer. I'm not sure if I don't think it's myself, so.
Okay. And of course, you can
Sometimes
always
I wonder.
email us, communitycommons@menands.org. If you have anything you want to tell us that you don't want to say out loud. I will say we're going to make a motion. Do we adjourn and then do executive session? We will need to have an executive session. I guess we adjourn and then do the executive session. So could I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion here.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, then could I get a motion for an executive session, please? And give the reason also.
Make a motion, we enter executive session for the medical credit employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we are in executive session. I will say to the group, feel free to stay if you want. We do not anticipate taking action. Free to flee if you